We're back once again, fresh off of the 4th of July. Joshua Fisher, Alexander Tosopoulos, Nikki Snacks Kreider, and the Quan Cosby. Get your horns up, because here we go.
Horns Up, Talking Texas podcast. And we got a special guest on this one. One of my good friends, one of my former teammates, Alex De La Torre joins the boys. He's a brand new father. Congratulations on the new baby, De La.
Let's go, man.
Coaching high school football now, though, right? At Wiley High School. How's that been going for you, man? You've been coaching for about 3 years now?
It's been more, man. It's been since we got done after pro day back in 16. At the same time, I was kind of on the side getting my alt certification, and pretty much started that summer. So 2016, this will be just finished my 6th year.
Oh wow!
And
time flies.
Yeah, man. So was back at home at Ryan, Denton Ryan for a little bit. And then I actually got the Wiley East job, doing the special teams coordinator, coaching the backers. It's been fun, man. It's very rewarding, and I love what I do. It's the best profession in the world, in my opinion.
And your dad is a coach, right? For Denton Ryan still?
Yeah, he's the defensive coordinator.
Got it. So you've always had an inclination to coach, yeah?
Yeah. What's weird is I never wanted to coach. I kind of been coached my whole life with my dad, but whenever we ended up going our freshman, sophomore year, I'd come back and help him out during spring ball, and just kind of fell in love with it, like the kids, seeing them take what you're telling them to do, and trust in the process. And then you see those results, and it kind of, it's very gratifying to see all that hard work pay off, and plus you get to stay around the game, man, stay young a little bit. So it's definitely fun.
And you get to coach in the best high school football in the United States of America, baby.
Oh, I know.
Good times, man.
I saw somebody retweet something saying Florida's high school football is way better than Texas. And I'm like, I never comment on stuff, but I was very close to commenting.
Hey, it's smart, because all they want to do is argue on that. They have nothing but time on their hands on there. I've gotten in plenty of those spats. It's a funny story. When I was in Cincinnati, I may have told it before, but I had a guy from Ohio there, and high school kid talking all that crap about Texas. And I didn't bring it up, and he brought it up, and he's like, man, we play at Canton. And I was like, that's actually pretty cool. I was like, yeah. Canton. I played there when we played a game against the Cowboys. What is seat, about 8,000? And he was like, yeah, and it's packed. I said, yeah. Have you checked Jerry's World lately? Because Texas high school football fills at least the lower bowl of it up, and that's about 45 to 50,000.
Yeah,
easy.
It blew his mind.
It's crazy. People always go at Texas high school football. I remember my 21st birthday. I'm from New York, and one of my buddies tried to get at one of my other buddies, like not aggressively, but just simply saying that New Jersey high school football was better than Texas football.
I mean,
and I said, grab a pillow and a blanket, dude. That's what I told him. There's a couch right there. You're done for the night. We have to
at
send
least
him
Florida
out.
can have at least a small portion of the conversation.
Oh, no, it's hilarious. Della, have you noticed anything different now that obviously being a coach and looking back at your days as a Longhorn on the team, anything that you've learned now that has made you think differently of your coaches then?
That's a really good question. And Nick, you probably remember T-Rob, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
T-Rob on me hard, man, because he asked me, and I actually took a lot of stuff from him, but he asked me straight up. He said, what are your goals? He goes, whatever you say, I'm going to hold you to them. He's like, you want to be NFL fullback? And I was like, yeah. and he's like, all right, well, I'm about to show you. And by far was the hardest on me. You can ask anybody in that room. There's a lot of funny stories. What's crazy is he never cussed. He's always yelling foot, and he's got all these different words for the different terms he would be saying, or other coaches may be saying. But, he actually did show me a lot of things in terms of teaching me the game, in terms of the integrity of the offense, right? So it's not, hey, you're blocking, this weak side backer to safety to any other threat, right? He's telling you everything, and he's teaching you the entire scheme, right? That's a pretty good teacher, right? And what I've learned teaching, it's how do you make complicated things simple, right? A lot of good coaches find a way to do that, and it looks real, high tech, like all those high powered offenses. They keep it pretty simple, and they just practice the crap out of it and get really good at it. But for me, in terms of teaching, something I've taken from him is he tries to teach you why we run these concepts, not just, hey, you have a post here. Here's why you have a post. This is why you're going to come back if he's playing off coverage, soft man, or if, you see 2 high safeties, you know what I'm saying? Like, he just really broke it down. Yeah. Really got, Quan, reading the safeties and them corners and the coverage and the body position, like just teaching all of that, right? Things I never necessarily took or understood from the get-go as a young player. That's something that I really can look back, and I appreciate him doing that, because he made me really prepared to be a coach. And so the transition was really smooth for me. And just looking back, yeah, it was different, but I think it could have been a lot worse if I wasn't prepared enough. But yeah, it's crazy, man. It's coming back and a lot of guys, I'm like, coaching is different. Like, you could be a great player, but sometimes it's hard to be a really good coach. There's a lot of different aspects to it, but it's interesting to look back and see some of those things that he told me about that I was going to see if you become a coach, and hell, they're happening. So.
Yeah. Someone said that about like John Elway. It was very interesting you said that, because even like some of the great players, like, and John Elway obviously runs the team, not the coach, but everyone's like, he runs the Broncos. How come he keeps flopping on drafting quarterbacks? Because outside of Peyton Manning, they haven't really had much success there. And people think it's because of the way he sees himself, and his understanding of the game was so much easier for him that he's having a tougher time evaluate like actual talent, because he can't really assess what it's not like to be great. And he really hasn't, like, his understanding of the game is different for a player who's had to maybe work a little harder to get to be great than he had to.
Mm-hmm. And being seeing him as a president, what's funny is he's very good at every other aspect, but he struggle buses with the quarterback position. Like you said, he got Peyton after we all got fired in Indy, and I ended up going over there too. And now the kudos from him being a Hall of Famer or not is he's like, damn, I keep missing on these quarterbacks out of the draft. I'm going to go get Russ. So having that ability to just be that Hall of Fame perspective and mindset, and to even take a step back and say, okay, I'm not very good at that. Talk about sports, talk about things that in teaching. Alex, you keep talking about, how you learn how to teach, how you coach, and you teach the players a lot. That's pretty cool. But a great example, Josh, for Elway and just his process as a president versus being the Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, registry's right there. There's a guy on your former team who is one of the best players in the country, guy that in all our Longhorn like groups and everything, people are chomping at the bit for him. It's a crazy process for these young guys. Now, before we kind of get into Anthony Hill, what are you seeing on the high school level? Obviously, it's so different with NIL compared to when you were there. How are these kids handling it in high school? How is their work ethic? How are they taking the coaching you guys are giving them? Because that's been a lot of our discussions. Obviously, we all saw the cell phone video that was on last season. Mm-hmm. That was taken. And the biggest thing was not the coach yelling, but the kid taking the video and the maturity level there. So what's it been like as far as maturity goes, how the kids are handling NIL, and maybe some of the bigger players like Anthony Hill that you're seeing?
That's a great question, man. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. What the biggest thing being, your village around you, right? You got your high school coaches and your teammates. That's part of your village. You have your, parents at home. And then, any other people that you may work with outside, specialists working skills, strength conditioning, stuff like that. But no, it is completely changed. It's a lot different. And I don't feel like we're that old, Nick, but we didn't see this, they barely had graphics when we came out, which looking back, I'm like, dang, I'd love an edit. But like now it's,
yeah, you actually watched tape back in those days.
Right.
I remember going and sitting with Coach Giles and Manny, and we're watching tape when I visited. Like, we didn't do photos or nothing. We were watching tape. We were going through stuff. I was talking with Coach Blake. He was at LSU recently. I'm not too sure, Coach Baker, where he's at now. But I remember sitting with them and watching film. Like, that was kind of the visit tour. All right, man, we're going to offer you. And I'm like, done deal, just because I grew up such a UT guy, and I knew without a doubt that was where I wanted to be. But man, from seeing it from my perspective, a lot of people say, the game's changed and like college is different. But like, we got to remember, kids are going to be kids. Kids are going to be the same. It's not the kids that are changing. I mean, there's different extraneous factors around us that make things different. Like, everything's new now. You know what I mean? So kids are being kids. Like, they're going to do what's cool. Like, the cool thing to do is to go on visits to Bama and, you know, the big time schools. Like, guys are going to do that just because that's an experience itself. It's kind of the same thing with recruiting nowadays, man. It's just so it's complex, and a lot of coaches want to make sure they're crossing, you know, those boxes off. Are we providing them this, and it's a competition almost, you know, nowadays to who can I attract the most attention and the most, you know, synergy, right? This is where you're going to fit. I think it's a lot harder because now you're having to prepare almost, you know, case reports like, hey, this is where you're going to be. This is where we see you. You know, you're having to plan this for every recruit that you get. Man, that's a really hard and long question to answer.
Yeah.
That would take a little bit more research. Like, let's really look at it, you know? But from my perspective, you know, as a coach, and I try not to judge any kids or what their parents decide just because that's their decision, you know? And what I try to do, obviously, you know, I'd love to see good players go to my alma mater, but at the end of the day, it's like, hey, whatever is your best fit and where you can see yourself being the next 4 years. I think kids kind of lose that in hindsight, especially now with the transfer portal. So there's just so many different things going on nowadays. Like, I don't know if it'll ever be kind of like what it was, you know?
Yeah, I highly doubt it.
It's crazy, man. But Anthony Hill, they're doing a great job. You know, I've known Anthony since he was 7, and his parents are great. You know, great family, great kid, works hard, balls out. I mean, what else can you do? I mean, you can't ask that kid to do any more. He works hard, strong, fast, great player. And hopefully he ends up with the good guys. That's what I'd hope.
Yeah, we'd all be heartbroken if he didn't. But, you know, you bring up a good point. Kids will be kids, but these last, I don't know, 8-10 years, this is a whole nother generation of kids in general. The technology with social media, with TikTok, with vlogging, with how much money you can make off Instagram now and your likeness. I mean, the NIL just shaped this whole landscape. And it's interesting because colleges really also have to not only look at the player, but also the brand too. They have to accommodate how big of a brand that player is going to be, right? And all these kids that have millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and Twitter, it's just a whole nother generation. I mean, Jonte Cook just committed to Texas, but before he committed to Texas, he was vlogging on every single one of his official visits, right? He's at Bama with like a cameraman, like going around his official visit with him. Like, you see like the exact same thing that he does when he's walking around on his official visit. So it is definitely very different than we were there just a short while ago. It doesn't feel that long ago, but man, the tides have changed. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. When a guy steps onto campus, he commits to UT. I'd love to hear Quan and De La, y'all's opinions on what at that point the coaches need to say to focus on, because there's so much external messaging. When you step onto campus, there's so many different things that different kids want, right? Some of them want to get to the NFL. Some of them just want to put on the burnt orange. Some of them want to win a national championship. And I think it's really interesting because if you look at a high school team, and I'm sure you've experienced some of this, those external factors are even different, right? Some of it is, I want to make a big play in tonight's game because there's a girl in the stands that I like. Like, I want to play with my buddies. I want the social aspect of the team, right? Like, you get rid of some of those things when you step into playing D1 college ball, especially on a campus like UT. But what would you like to see, and what do you tell your kids to kind of focus them in on one specific task? And I imagine, you know, that task right now for the Burnt Orange is to win a national championship, or maybe it's smaller than that, and then there's a bigger one. Of course, there's multiple different goals that you want to achieve in a season, but what do you think they should be telling these kids when they step onto campus, onto the 40 acres, to get them locked in?
I'll go after you, De La. Go for it, homie.
Well, you know, so if I were to look right now, my perspective at the high school level, you know, I took the Wiley East job. They've not been very successful in the past recent years. And good friend of mine, Coach Marcus Gold, asked me to come and help them bring it back. So it's kind of, that's my next chapter as a coach. So what do we like looking at? What do we have to fix? Right. The number one thing is, and every coach says it, but culture, right? You have this certain culture of your program that takes care of it itself. So when we think about, and Quan can attest to this because he's played with those guys who are, you know, you were in a great time for Texas football, you know, the culture takes care of that. Them leaders take care of that. You know, you got the Arakpos, the Colts, the Quans, the Shipleys. Like, if you're not going to come in and, you know, put in that due process, that's what's going to take for you to get on the field, it's going to handle itself. You know what I mean? So it's maybe getting enough guys with the like-mindedness of, we are here to be great and we're going to uphold this culture and standard for our team, and not just because we have to. It's not coach fed, you know, it's player led. We're out here managing us, right? And the really good teams do that. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with our high school at the high school level, right? Well, we don't have them 24/7 like we do college athletes. I wish we did, right? Can't have enough time. I'd be watching everything, every film. But I do think that's a big factor in it is, and I think Quan can agree, like the players there and the dudes on the team, like when those guys come in, once you establish that culture and you got all those daily habits those guys do day in, day out, it takes care of itself. So if somebody's not on the same page, you know, it's going to get handled regardless, you know.
Oh, man, so well said. Totally agree. I actually was listening to the radio on the way up here, and they were talking about, you know, Quinn versus Hudson and who's more vocal, who's not. Certainly Rowe and Bijan have been more vocal. And I was literally thinking about exactly what Alex just said. I mean, that culture is still, and I texted even one of the guys, I was like, listen, y'all say you're worried because neither quarterback is overly, you know, expressive or not leading with their mouth. And I'm like, two things. One, Hudson's been there a little bit longer, so that might be a little bit concerning or confusing, but Colt didn't talk much his freshman year. You know, he had Casey Studdard in that huddle. He had so many dudes, you know, Blaylock and then a lot of us older guys who have been there. Now, he worked his ass off every single play, and we knew that he was going to show up. But culturally, to what De La's talking about, I remember my very first, and you talk about the different mindsets of getting on campus, Toss, is my very first, me and Jamal were going to a practice, very first 7-on-7. And he's like, yeah, Q, I was an All-American, you know, at Port Arthur. I was like, yeah, I was at Mart. Yeah, he was at this. Yeah, he was at that. Yeah, he was. We got to get to work, bro. Let's go. And we got on the field, and Vince flat out, he said, hey, Q, you're already at number 2. Like, we need you. And ironically, end up, you know, starting by game 4 because of injuries. Same, we saw Jamal all over the field his freshman year. So, and then I remember that very first practice too. I'm straight out of freaking baseball. A. Ross is like, nah, bro, we got to get you out of this baseball shape. Let's go. So we did our 2 hours of 7-on-7, and then we did another 1 hour of, you know, one-on-ones. And I laughed because I just walked from the parking garage to here, and I'm over here complaining about the heat. And I used to do that in the summer like it was nothing. So you really, like you said, it's all about that. It's about, you know, knowing and really getting on campus now is different because these guys actually think, all right, there's a good chance I'm going to play as a freshman. I'm going to be an impact player. Honestly, from our standpoint, we had such dogs on there and dudes and layers of depth. I was like, I just want to find a place on this team and the rest of it will take care of itself. So it's just a whole different time and all the above, which actually takes me into something else I want to ask you, Daylight. When we were in high school, bro, the most thing we had to deal with, especially I'm my age myself, because first it was Super Nintendo, you know, not as much time on Super Nintendo. And then we got to PlayStation and all the rest of it. Bro, your high school kids that you don't have all day with, they have we talk about it on a collegiate level, and it's true, but they have so many freaking distractions. How the hell do y'all even try to, especially like you said, getting back, you know, getting Wiley back to where that Denton was a machine on every level and is going to continue to be that school, but getting Wiley back to where it needs to be and managing distractions. How crazy and challenging has that been for you guys?
You know, it's went as well as we could. be able to have it. To be honest, yeah, it's tough. You inherit a group of great kids, and that's kind of the big thing is we got coaches who are 4 kids on this staff. That's the thing that you have to have, right? Relationships and, being able to relate to the kids as well. That's a big part to play in it. But for us, we went 3-7 last year. Well, let's look at what we could have did better, right? Well, I know for a fact on my special teams, when I'm grading technique and effort, right? Do we just think this is a play off, or is this an opportunity to go and steal the ball back? Or is this an opportunity to go and block that kick and get, whatever award we have for the week, We're trying to change how they think about things, right? So for us, we're having to constantly put them in hard, stressful situations in order to get used to it, right? Get used to adversity when things aren't wrong, and then change their mindset of not, oh, crap, here we go again. It's like, oh, all right, let's go respond. You know what I mean? Trying to make that whole transition as an entire group. We're not going to get 100%, but we want to get as close as we can to that as possible. But it's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult because not only do you have football guys, but they got baseball on Tuesday, Thursdays. You got dudes playing pickup basketball, and I done told them that's the Q Diggs rule. Don't go play pickup basketball. You're gonna break your wrist or something. And I remember Q got that in the spring. I think 2013 something happened, and they told us don't be playing no low hoop basketball at Fiji anymore. We couldn't do that anymore. But like guys, I mean, they're doing so many things, and then we only have them for 3 hours maybe a day, certain times during season, 3 hours a day. But that's kind of the question, right? That's what a head coach has now became. It's not so much X's and O's. It's how can I manage and be super efficient at this to where we can get the most out of the time we get, and our kids can do the best they can within that time frame. Like how can we as coaches set them up to be successful, right? It's on us. We plan it. We set these things in, and now you got your coaches like me who we're the rah-rah guys. So we're always telling them about pushing through. You know what I mean? That's just me though. But also being like, look, this is how we have to do it. And then you're just constantly reinforcing those values. You're pointing out, things that are not right. You're pointing out things that are right. But I mean, it goes so deep when you really break it down. It's honestly crazy. I don't know how we do it as coaches, man, because we're balancing that. Plus we go home, and now we have our families and kids.
Y'all have stuff to deal with too. We're talking about everything the kids have to deal with. The coaches have stuff in other lives too, outside of football. Life.
Dude, honestly, I actually asked that question for a reason, because Toss mentioned, hey, the distractions, all the different things, the guy that's worried about the girlfriend. Truth of the matter is, and I'm going to bring this back to a Texas perspective. Yes, those guys are out there. Yes, those people are out there. And if I'm being honest, I think for the last few years, those are the guys we've gotten, the ones who are more concerned about the distractions. The reason Texas fan base and football is fired up now, because again, did I have a high school girlfriend? Sure, but she knew there's a certain time frame I'm MIA. You got it. And guess what? You know what I knew? If I ball out, she's gonna be there. So you want these dudes that just have a little bit different mindset, that's no longer a distraction, that's no longer worried about, sure, I had PlayStation, but that comes after taking care of business. And that's what's cool about what we're seeing in recruiting. I know some, the linebacker you talked about, well, you said it, he's balls to the wall. He busts his butt. That's those just different level dudes that for so many, years, like Alex, like so many of our guys that we've gotten when we were winning. I think that's why everybody's fired up, because we're getting those kids again.
Yeah. And the margin is so small too. If we look at all our wins and losses over the past, since Nick and Alex and y'all played on the team, it's just
point differential is not that far away.
It's nothing. And we're actually in a similar position as you're in, Dela, that as a Texas Longhorn group, where we were 5-7 last year. Y'all were 3-7, and it goes little things that are going to take us over the top. And y'all were in that position before with Chuck, right? When you guys had a rough year, and then it kind of was 5-7 and 6-7, or maybe reverse. And I'm sure things were said in the locker room. What were some of the things that were said in that locker room that helped? Maybe a couple of things that weren't said that you would say to the team now.
Well, first off, that when we talk about 2014, that's a very unique year because we had, and when we counted it up, and again, when I'm talking this, I'm saying it from an even perspective, right?
Yeah.
Whenever Coach Strong got there, yes, you know, they were looking for a different type of culture. But we had like 12 contributors that the previous year that were either kicked off, which is part of their own fault as well, right? We had guys who transferred and then guys who just like weren't doing anything. And so they're like, all right, we're going to use this scholarship for someone else, right? Well, when you take away, you know, those two should have been day one offensive tackles that we had, you know, and we're shaking up the roster completely. So now it's like, you know, we got different guys in different positions. Some of those leaders that were there, maybe in that position group or that side of the phase of offense, defense, or special teams is now not there. So it's like guys are trying to step up, and maybe some of it wasn't as authentic because you have some people talking, but not necessarily doing as much as, you know, Duke Thomas, right? Or someone who's earning it week in, week out. There was a disparity for sure of guys who weren't doing much, but got the opportunity because of attrition. And then you have guys who were there putting it in, maybe competing for a spot or returning, who, I mean, there was just some type of dissonance in between that we couldn't figure out, especially going into, you know, our senior year. We couldn't figure that out. And I think when I look back at it, when all those guys were kicked off, I put that on us, man. And it comes back to those kids you were just talking about, Quan. I look at their village, right? Who is in their village, right? Are their parents, you know, great? They're on them. They make sure they're doing right. Do you have coaches who are supporting them, being their biggest advocate? That's really what's setting kids up, or even your teammates, right? You may not have a village, but when you get on campus, that's your village, right? So we got guys who were failing and not getting straight because they're going to do what they want to do. Well, we didn't handle that, right? We could have helped them. And so I think that was another thing. I don't think, and me included, right? We all were caught up in different stuff at the time and focused on individual because, you know, new coach, everybody wants to survive, make it through. We don't know what's going to happen. I think we could have did better, you know, holding guys accountable and being there for them and being a friend, like a true friend, where if it's wrong, you should be telling them, you know. I think a lot of that goes into, can we last, right? As a program, you know, you got your teammates and then your village, right? Your parents and your school. A lot of kids, if they have a good village, like they're going to really succeed and they're set up to succeed. Like the first kid I'm thinking off my head is Finkley. That kid's parents seem on it. He did it right. He's, you know, seems like a very smart kid. He looks great in the weight room from clips I've seen. Like that kid's going to ball out, you know, just looking at the people around him. You know what I mean? I think that has a big part to play in it, and why maybe we've been lacking that, you know, why we've been getting some guys. It's like maybe they have some issues with the people around them.
Definitely. And even just like on the performance side of things too. I mean, look, there's no shortage of talent, right? Like those years that we were there, like you look at a lot of guys in the NFL, they're still in the NFL, right? Like we talk about guys who don't get drafted or that fall in the draft, 7th round, 6th round, 4th round guys. Like Quandre Diggs is getting paid now, you know, and he's a starting safety, and Marcus Johnson is still on a team and he was undrafted, and Jordan Hicks and like Malcolm Brown, like all these guys still play, and they were not highly drafted, partially probably because, you know, it wasn't performing at Texas and it wasn't like necessarily, you know, a Bama style program back then, but these guys are talented, and you're right. It takes a village to kind of get them to the potential that they need.
Yeah. Well, I think,
I'm sorry. There's a stigma too on UT players in the draft. We don't need to skip that. You know, Jackson Jefferson,
yeah, of course,
Hendricks Award, best DN or D lineman in the nation, and gets undrafted. Like ludicrous. And he's still playing. He's winning Canadian Bowls, whatever they're called. He's winning them things with Winnipeg still. Like, I just want to let that be known. Like, there is a complete bias, right? And we all know that. But
it really is, man. And what's crazy about it, even when we were winning, it was still sort of there. We had 50. We've talked about it before. We had damn near 60 folks in the league, everybody contributing, balling. And I think there was a time where we kind of got rid of at least the majority of it. And then unfortunately in the last few years, it's come back times 20. So Sark has his work cut out for him for kind of killing that stigma / soft country club perspective that Texas was. So that's real right there. That's a huge point for it, because dudes are taking care of business. They are. But going back to it, I guess the question is, are they getting developed? I know we were balling, but are they getting developed, I guess, on this level, and that'll give them a chance to play on the next level.
Yeah. And hopefully this new staff, I mean, it looks like things are working out. I mean, we got a couple of studs on offense. We got a bunch of studs on defense, but real quickly, I know we talked about what we want the university to ask from the players, but on the flip side of things, let's say that you guys are recruiters, right? Like, what would you tell a student athlete right now, all NIL money aside, but what would you tell someone that is between A&M and Bama and Texas and Georgia? Like, what is Texas's selling point right now? The number one thing that you could tell them.
Quan, you go first. Bro.
How to say, man, you've been having these players come, so something's been working. Man, I'm gonna tell you, really, I say it all the time, but and I'm so old school when it comes to this, because I remember even telling Marquise, I was like, man, come to Austin on Tuesday and then leave on Thursday. See what you think about the city. See what you think about the school, because College Station on a weekend is going to seem amazing. I rolled through College Station on a Tuesday and it is garbage. It's just nothing to do. It's just not the same city. Tuscaloosa, they've won like crazy, but I don't see Bama players moving back to Tuscaloosa. Matter of fact, the Bama players are moving to Austin. And so really just that combination of a few things that Austin has to bring. And then last but not least, you know, Alex is sitting over at Den balling. I mean, they are one state a couple years ago doing this thing, but someone called and you have an opportunity to build and to grow and to get a blue blood or a school that you can get back. That I don't know if it's a competition perspective. I don't know what it is, but who doesn't want to fix something? Who doesn't want to grow? Who doesn't want to, bring things? Unfortunately, you can't even say bring things back anymore because people go crazy about thinking Texas is back. I mean, ultimately, and even to that comment, what I would say is, okay, we haven't won as many games, which, by the way, Alabama didn't matter whenever I played. It was USC. It was, Florida. It was all of us. So all these schools are going to go through those downturns. But Texas still, we're 5-7, and we're about to have number one recruiting class. Were we ever gone? Yes, we need to win more. But Texas has always been there and will always be there. So college ball is way better when Texas is in the mix nationally. But the whole question of us being back, and this is very biased, but we never left. We're still winning some things, especially in every other sport.
Yeah. Well, and that's funny, and I'm going on a tangent here, but CDC said something that I really liked, and it sounds like an AD who's backing his coaches. And he said something, we went 5-7. We lost 6 games in the lead, double digits at half, maybe 5 to 6. Check my numbers, but I watched every game last year. And, what's discouraging, right, is losing. Tex OU, I was at Dalton Santos' house. We're hooping and hollering, man. We're having a great time. And then it just slowly, we were like, but what's so like refreshing to see is when asked that question, CDC said, we went and did our due diligence and found the best in the business, right? We got them. Like, they're here, like we did that for a reason. Like, we're not just going to refresh and then do it again. You know what I mean? So I thought that right there is setting us up for a really good point. And then, this year's pivotal for Sark, right? Sark and company. But the fact that you have an athletic director who won the Director's Cup, 2 years in a row now, best athletic program, who's backing those guys, man, I think that's huge. Not only for the players, knowing those guys are going to be here, but even for the coaches, knowing that we got a guy who supports us and believes in us and knows that we've done really good things at Bama and other schools. Like, dude, I thought that was great. I thought that was awesome. Yeah. And I'm glad somebody said it. Like, just because things are bad, we want to save face and just put it on a coach, or he didn't do good. new staff, new people, you know, those are people's lives too. And so I love seeing that when a AD sticks up for them guys. And we do have one of the, if not the best coaching staff in the nation. You know, when you look at each level and who they've coached, man, you know, I think it's great. And I just wanted to let that be known. Like, I rock with that. I like what he said. And as a coach now, I respect it even more.
Oh, yeah. What's crazy about that, and not to cut y'all, but Tom, we don't talk a lot about what Tom did because that was an interesting time for us. But one of the things he said when he actually almost got me to be like, oh, man, this guy might be that dude, as he said, you know, coaches, players, which that's relative, that's a little hyperbole, but they don't win championships, administrations do. Now, no, for players and coaches do their part as well. However, you know, having a, you know, DeLoss, having a Powers, having a Mac that we just got it on such a level that we've talked about it a million times on here. We haven't been that stable in a very long time on that level. You know, Hartzell is as real as it gets. CDC is figuring it out. And certainly what he has figured out is how the coaches and them get along, and he has their back. And that trickles down to every sport where everybody just, it's amazing going there. Just one, you're some of the highest paid coaches on the planet, but that also comes with pressure. But then if he can take that pressure off you and still take care of you, that's something special that you can figure out. And clearly they have in every sport, but the one that we're hoping for in the fall, and we're feeling optimistic about it.
Yeah, well, it also goes back to like just culture in general of everything trickles down from the top. Like we had Malik Jefferson on a couple months ago, and he talked about how the Indianapolis Colts have amazing organization because they just do things right from the very tip top, and it trickles down. Exactly, and it really just it trickles down to the entire organization, and that's the same thing here, right? Like what CDC's instilling in its university, it's going to work out. I mean, we just need time. That's really what it is. I mean, Kirby Smart won his first natty for 6 years, right? Like he came to Georgia 6 years ago, and that's how long it took him. It doesn't happen overnight. And like none of these guys, I mean, Chuck Strong and Tom Herman, 4 years. I mean, this is Sarkisian's second year. So
really 4 years was because of contracts. I mean, there was chirping after 2, you know?
Exactly.
So just that's just, we can't keep doing that. We cannot keep doing that. And this recruiting class also, we're as bad as some of the kids these days. We get distracted real quick because I know I've consistently forgot that we went 5-7 last year with what I'm seeing now. But all that support matters. Everybody buying in matters, and certainly clearly we have a lot, excluding NIL, because I truly believe Arch Manning didn't make an NIL decision.
No,
I think he made a lifetime.
He don't need money.
He doesn't need money. The Manning empire is fine and growing. And so I think that's something that's going to have ripple effects as far as what Sark and their crew are selling. And clearly it's something to be said about it. That's why I go back. Yes, we had 5-7, but Texas they was never gone. We don't need to come back. We need to win more games. But Texas is still that brand that you can see on every corner of the country, and it's a lot of pride behind it.
It's the same thing as the Knicks. Honestly, I've said it on the show before. Like the people are scared to go to there, but the first person that comes in and gets us to the playoffs, not even wins us a natty. Like let's say Quinn comes in this year, if everything goes amazingly well, or let's say it goes next year, we go to the playoffs in the second year as a starter. How is a school gonna, view him? I mean, like Colt obviously has all the records and everything, but he didn't win. He got us there, but he didn't win. And he is one of the most top 3 heralded players, top 5 heralded players in the history of our program. The first person that gets us there is, practically like build a statue.
Second coming.
Then the guy that gets us to the, at least to the game, the first person that wins, the first QB and the first like big player, be it a running back or a receiver or a defensive guy, like that not only changes the future of like a potential dynasty of a program like ours, because that's like a blue chip can do that. A blue chip can become a dynasty, but they're going to be God walking around 40 acres. And that's why I think a guy like Arch Manning goes and does something like this, because it's not Peyton went to Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee is big, but like Tennessee's not the end all be all. Ole Miss wasn't the end all be all, and obviously they had ties there, but I think Arch wants a challenge, and we want a guy that wants a challenge.
Definitely. And also, like, on the flip side as well, he goes to a school like Bama, right, where every quarterback that's gone through there now at this point in the NFL, right? I mean, talking about Tua and even Hurts and Mac Jones, like, he's not necessarily going to be that guy to take over the entire franchise. I mean, they've already been winning. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we talked about it last week on the show that Manning has been seasoned and primed for this pressure his entire life because he's a Manning, right? And he's up for this. And this is something that's bigger. It's the pressure of Texas football. It's not like anything else, in my opinion.
I got another question for you. Oh, go ahead, Toss.
I was just going to say real quick is I think the really interesting thing, and I don't know if it was yesterday or over the weekend, where Arch, in some response, and I'm going to paraphrase, and it's not the entire quote here, but he was just like, I just want to play football. And him making that point of emphasis where some of the other guys after he have committed and said, I want to bring Texas back. And they keep using that language, bringing Texas back, we're back. But to me, I point to one of our previous players using that language, saying we're back after we went and beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And it was Sam, right? It was Sam Ehlinger. That's a guy who put in the work to get the team back, right? You can't be back unless you actually put in the work, because it's easy, like in this like hot take culture, right? That's what sports media is. Everyone's out there. They want to say cool things. They want to be the next big thing. It's fun to say like, I'm going to bring Texas back, but you actually have to put the work in to bring Texas back, right? It's a two-step process. And I think, to me, Arch saying that he's emphasizing he wants to play football is an indication that he can be the same type of cultural leader that Sam was for our team. And did the rest of the team buy in with Sam? Some guys did, some guys didn't. I think that's why we had our ups and downs with him as our quarterback. And so it's just about that total buy-in and the consistency and culture with time, Nick, like what you were saying, which I thought was really poignant.
And you'll see with those guys like Arch and within not only that class, but on campus, there has to be, like in the Texas great years, you can put on one hand on each side of the ball who them dudes were, like that are going to just carry on the next group, right? That's kind of what we're seeing at the successful programs like Bama. Each year it's a new cornerback, right? Not quarterback, CB, DB, whatever, new safety. It's like they continue to carry it on, right? And we haven't had that for a while, like it was Brian Arakpo, then it became Serge, right? And then the next person, AO, and then the next person, Jackson Jeffco, it said Reed, so on and so forth, right? But at least like 3 or 4 different positions on the field, like that's when Texas is really good. Like, so yeah, maybe Arch and Jonte and hopefully Anthony Hill. I'll say this: if Anthony commits to Texas, I think just because I know him and I've seen him play, he has zero fear of anybody, and he looks way bigger than the pictures. I promise you. He's my brother. My brother is strong as an ox. Like starting center for Ryan as well. He's stronger than my brother. Like, I mean, up there weight, and can run and hit. He may start day one if he commits. In my opinion, because he's strong right now as a college football player.
Yeah. Well, didn't Malik start at day one, right?
He played early.
Hey,
remember he played early.
He had that big play in the first drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then kind of from that point, it was like, oh, yep.
If he commits to Texas, you're gonna have a conversation with him because he wears number 6.
Yeah,
hey, dude, it's all good. Tell him to come on. It is available for him. I don't care who's in it now. We will have a conversation with them as well. We need him. But no, that's cool, man. That's first of all, they can be fired up. But I got another question for you, which, by the way, Wiley, don't take this wrong. He's going to be there for as long as he needs to. But clearly your pops, great high school coach as well. Is that what you see yourself 10 years from now, is still being at the high school level, collegiate level? Because you have both. I mean, you're D1 baller too. You have that knowledge, the memories from mentors back in those days. What do you see, 10 years from now? Of course, new baby and wifey has, weigh in on that as well.
Yep.
But right.
What are your thoughts?
Well, so I guess the way I've been looking at it, what made me so as a teacher, I have to look at like decisions, right? Or even just, I look at things differently. Like, why do I like coaching? So let's really break it down. I love kids. I love football. I love coming together for a common goal above me. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are things that I find joy in, right? And then obviously winning and going out there and like my personality and the way I see football being played get implemented in a game and like it's successful. Like, there's no feeling like it. Like it is like just thrilling to me. Like, if we go on a punt block, I mean, I'm putting everything I got into this punt block. I'm designing like, hey, your job's this, you know what I mean? And like, when I see it happen, it's like they're gonna have. I have a get back coach. Like, you better get me because I'm gonna be on the field out there, like pointing up in the air, getting ready to jump. Man. Like, when I look at it, I love it for the passion. I love it for reaching a common goal, and then the kids are great. So for me, high school football is right where I want to be. Yeah. Do I want to go to the college football level? Have I pondered that? Absolutely. Have I tried to? Actually, yeah. But obviously things didn't, pan out, which is okay, but it was a one-time deal. I really was serious about it and tried to, but it just didn't work out. But no, high school, man, I love it. Maybe down the road, if I can do some Jeff Traylor crap, go win a bunch of state championships, hopefully, maybe make a move. I don't know.
I like that, man. That's real. No, man, I love Texas high school football. Again, it's funny how all this worked. I'm texting freaking radio on the way in. And then my high school coach, Terry Cron, was texting me about something else from Mart back in the day, man. So I follow it like crazy. Proud of you on every level, but that's good stuff, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Josh.
All right. We ask all our guests this, the end of the show, man. Could be from you playing off the field, on the field, in the locker room, anywhere. What is your favorite memory as a Texas Longhorn?
Man, I wish I would have had an answer if I really thought about it. I would say this: through all the adversity we had our senior year, right? And it's not just one moment, but kind of like a collection of beating Oklahoma and Baylor that year. Mm-hmm. One, because it was my last year, so it's a lot more memorable for me. But just being 1-4 going into the Red River rivalry, I mean, that's not a good position to be in, right? But we had nothing to lose, and like we knew we were going to get after them. We had a good game plan. I was confident in it, and that's when we broke out the old Belldozer package, the 18-wheeler, for the first time. Like that I would say probably beating Oklahoma our senior year, just because it was hard, and that was my last. I had about 6 guaranteed games after that. And I just was like, man, I'm just going to play every game like I can't, like I have nothing left. And, unfortunately, we came out with the win. But I'd say that's my favorite memory on the field. Nick, we've had some fun memories too, just hanging out. Man. Oh, yeah.
Always a good time, man. Texas.
Well, I remember a good one too when I first started doing that whole radio thing over in West Virginia. That was some good stuff up there too. But that was before Chuck. I think that was Max last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'll actually tell you, because I think Max said it at the press conference that Monday, because I'd never been to a press conference. I'm a fullback, man. I just block. He's like, yeah, all right, go. I'll go with Bianco. Go talk and, do the. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, what am I doing? Yeah, you're going to go talk to the cameras. I'm like, all right, do I need to have questions? Or like, I don't know. He's like, Alex, go with John or just go in there. They'll ask the questions.
That's awesome.
I remember going in there. I was nervous as hell. And, next, I guess it was Monday, we went up to the north end zone, got the pluckers. Then I was like, okay, I can get used to this. We can we can talk.
Do you ever
the ball, coach? I need to get back up here for free pluckers on Monday. Dude, that honestly was the best.
Do you ever bust out any of the old footage you can game film for the players that you have in Texas?
Actually do, yeah. Back when I was coaching offense, so I actually switched back to defense this past season. But being a running back coach, cut block was probably my specialty. I was really good at it. And a lot of what we have to do as blockers, I think my first 2 years I did running backs, H-backs at Ryan, was like the details that go into it. And a lot of stuff with blocking, you use what the defense is coached to do against them. You know what I mean? When that goes into a lot of different things, but I'd pull out some cut block stuff and how to read outside zone. I think that when we had Texas Tech, Tyrone busted that long run at the end. I don't know how big it was there, but it was in the boundary too. I knew it was cutting it up, and I was like, well, I was going to stick it right here, see if I can make a hole, and it just naturally worked out, and I'll show them that too. And, you know, I pull out the practice stuff. I'll still I was roommates with Duke Thomas, so I still hit up Duke, and I'll find some 7-on-7 clips where I'm at wide out. I don't know why I'm at wide out. Wide out running a slant and catching it on him. He's like, we were in cover 2, bro. And I was like, whatever. I still caught it on.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, responsibility.
Appreciate your time, man. We really appreciate you. We're proud of you, man. Good luck to Wiley this season. Looking forward to catching up with you again, man.
Yeah,
Yes,
man.
sir.
Thank you all for having me. It's been a pleasure. I love doing this stuff. And I can do football talk all day.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
we got a bunch of games, man. We'll have you back, brother.
Yeah, not surprised, but super proud of you, man. Congrats on the little one and your family. And yeah, man, keep up the great work, brother.
Will do. Thank you, guys. I appreciate y'all, man. Hook them.
Hook them, everybody.
Hook them horns.
Hold on. Let me get a screenshot. I got to shout y'all out. 1, 2. God damn. I was going to shoot with y'all. All right, guys. Hey, y'all have a good one, man. Thank y'all.
All right, you too,
Later,
brother.
brother.
All right, brother.
I'll text you the link.
Okay.